Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Pedal Shift Project. The Pedal Shift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride. Let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/325, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109, and check Pedal Shift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 325th edition of the Pedal Shift Project. My name's Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining. On this edition, we are closing out the return to the C&O with day 3 of the ride. After a restful night at Huckleberry Hill, it was time to ride back to the District of Columbia. But a beautiful Sunday on the C&O usually means a very crowded trail. Would that slow me down in my ability to get home? Good morning from Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Technically speaking, across the way here. And I am rolling again. We're about mile marker, and we'll call it 62 and a half about this point. Had a wonderful sleep, interrupted. Does anybody ever really sleep through the night? I think I can count on one hand the number of times that I've been able to truly have a full restful sleep, like in a bed. Let's be honest, even in bed I don't always get a full restful night of sleep. But yeah, it was about as good as it gets. I am pleased to announce that my sleeping pad held air the whole night. Now, it was a little bit deflated by the morning, but substantially better by the time I woke up compared to the other morning with the other pad, which I think I'm just going to be tossing. I don't like just tossing things that have some utility. I just have no sense that there's like a hit prick or something like that. It's hard to tell, and it just wasn't very good to begin with. So I think I'm going to be just disposing of that. Maybe I'll figure out, I don't know. I feel guilty just throwing things away, so maybe I can figure out a way to get it to somebody who could use it, but I would like it to be in good shape before I do that. So look at me talking myself out of it. All right, so wet night. Boy, did I get lucky with how the rain ended up working. The entire night was punctuated by rain hitting the tents. Now, I don't know if it was left over from trees plus rain, but there was definitely some additional precipitation. And everything, including the reefly, was very soaked. Inside, high and dry. So that is just what I woke up and it was about 4 degrees, which, oh geez, let me do my Celsius here. That's probably about 6 degrees Celsius. So pretty chilly. I'm hoping you can hear the river itself. It's remarkable. The distance between the river and the towpath is literally just the width of the canal, and the river is the width of the towpath, and then maybe that much more before you get there. Really wild how that is. And speaking of wild, this is a wild section of the river, which is always nice to see. So many of our rivers are so controlled through dams, and the Potomac is certainly one of those. But at least in this section, it runs much more like a wild river. It's good habitat for fish, all sorts of other creatures that make this ride so much better. My original plan was to get out of here around now, maybe even a little earlier, and end up at Beans in the Belfry in Brunswick. But I've got plenty of food on me, and I think that stopping there and would just make me end up eating more than I need, which I'm still trying to avoid. I think I've done largely good, but yesterday, during the kind of downtime in the cabin, I feel myself eating. So I do want to be careful about that. It is the paradox of bicycle touring for me, maybe not for you all, or many of you all, some of you may have the same experience, that I will typically gain weight, as I've mentioned before, off of any given tour, and that's partially because I think I eat more than necessary, which is fine because you do have to eat accessible calories when you're riding, and that tends to be, for me, sugary stuff, which is fine, and then I end up eating a big meal at the end, and it just ends up being a lot. And then as we discovered, we talked about last tour, the tour before, maybe it was the tour before, about edema and the retention of water. I can already tell that I am not putting what I am inputting, and I don't think sweat is to blame or a descriptor for that. So I do think I'm retaining a bunch of water. So I expect that I'll have gained at least a couple of pounds by the time I get back. But that usually ends up, if it's a tick-tock kind of a thing, the tick is the gain of the weight, the tock will be the loss over the next few days. So we'll see how that all goes. But I bet it's a pretty notable thing for me. It's obviously much more notable when it's a longer tour than this, but we'll see how it is. Some construction here, interestingly. A lot of interesting construction along the towpath. I don't know what it's going to be. Now, this looks like it's in the canal itself, so I wonder if they're going to plan on filling this part again or something like that, or maybe it's just they need to handle some drainage. With the river right here, probably have some regulatory issues and things like that. Perhaps Clean Water Act issues. I will not bore you with that. That was years ago, Timmy, who is much more up on such things. Beautiful sunny start to the day. It'll warm up into the mid-60s by the time we're all said and done. So that'll be nice. I'm probably wearing more layers than I need right now. I'm wearing a wicking layer, short sleeve, then the merino wool long sleeve, and then my rain jacket. And that outer layer was mostly about just warm. But, now that I've been on the bike for a couple of miles, I don't think I'll need that. So I may ditch the middle layer, and we'll see where things go from there. Boy, the sun does feel good. My bag really is rated down to 32, but I'd say from a comfort level, anytime I'm in the mid-40s, mid-40s Fahrenheit, 5-6 degrees Celsius, it's fine for a limited amount of time. If it's like that for hours, I think things start to lose the comfort level, but then you just layer up underneath. I tend to not like to wear a lot of clothes. I just don't. Not okay, but I do wear clothes for the record while I sleep. But not. I don't like the feeling of being all cocooned up in multiple layers. You do it when you need to, but I don't like that. So the weather does fall, temperature-wise, I will start to wear more things. This morning I did throw on the long sleeve layer on top of the short sleeve layer, and then I was perfectly fine. Always wear a hat, though. That is the one thing that even for maybe not teeth of summer tours, but spring and fall shoulder season tours, I almost always bring a hat because that just really makes a difference for comfort at night. We're just about to the real bridge, which I was on Thursday night. Thursday late afternoon? We'll call Thursday night. The sun was still up. It's such a beautiful, picturesque place. If you've never been to Harper's Ferry, it is just stunning. Folks are early today, out and about. So this portion of the C&O between Brunswick, excuse me. Hey, I told you it was Gnat season. I just found a few. This portion of the C&O is also the Appalachian Trail. Yeah, after yesterday being a rough day in the afternoon, I expect things to be pretty busy when we're near the towns. And this stretch between Harpers Ferry and Brunswick is a very well-traveled portion. Couple of things I want to mention before wrapping up this mega segment to start the pod is number one, trail conditions. Beautiful, gorgeous. This surface just drains so well. Are there some ruts? Yeah, but I think that's more because this area has so much more traffic. But for the most part, it is really level, really unrutted. It's only rutted in certain spots. Very easy to avoid. Now, do I expect that to be the case maybe in another 30 miles or so? Once we get past mile marker 35, that stretch for the next 10 miles or so, 10 or 15, can be some of the worst parts of the trail after rain. But it's been so dry, I'm wondering if maybe the rain just soaked in and it's going to be in pretty decent shape. It'll be interesting to see if it's muddy. If it's muddy, I'll deal with it. I've certainly ridden in terrible muddy conditions on that stretch. But for the moment, just glorious. And I would stack this up against almost any trail. Hopefully, again, you can hear Potomac, wild Potomac here. Really beautiful, beautiful stretch of river here. A lot of people ask me whether or not a mirror is a necessity on the C&O. I would say it's not a necessity, unlike when you're doing road touring, where I really recommend it. But it's certainly nice, just to know, is someone behind you? Are they looking like they're going to overtake you? That kind of a thing. It's just a handy thing to peek back every once in a while. I just kind of like it. I'd say that it's about as busy as I've seen the trail since the pandemic, which is nice to see. Good morning. All right, so I talked about trail conditions. I said I had two topics. By the way, mile marker 60 at this point. So we've gone just shy over 3 miles since camp, or just shy under, I should say. Second thing I wanted to talk about is the front rack. And I have decided not to do anything additional. It seems very solid. I will continue to look at it during breaks today. And if there seems to be any weakening, I will rejigger it with some different zip ties or whatever. I just couldn't be bothered this morning since it seemed very solid. Of course, I did a very, very high-tech shake test. So there was that. Here are some cardinal songs. Yeah, this is prime season for through hikers coming through this part of the Harpers Ferry. It's a little early, actually, come to think of it. It's because I can't remember when Trail Days is in Damascus, but that tends to be when a lot of through hikers end up in the bubble, as they call it, end up going through Damascus, and that might not be for another few weeks. So maybe I'm a little wrong. This could be the early through hikers, or maybe just some section hikers. But yeah, it's fun to see the hikers later on in the summer, unless they're section hikers. Tend not to see many through hikers, but I've been seeing a lot of fully loaded backpacks, which I don't tend to see because I'm usually not out here this time of year. So to wrap up on the front rack, it seems, if anything, more stable now than it was before. I may be rethinking the design of it, because that was a bit of a bad surprise yesterday, and I was very lucky that I caught it when I did. I noticed it as a matter of happenstance, and what was holding it up was my front brake line, if you can believe it. That's a lot of weight for it to be holding. So I got lucky there, because that could have snapped my front brakes, which again, could I have done the rest of this trail with just rear brakes? Sure. I could have also called it if I didn't feel safe with it, but front brakes are just fine. Steel is real. That cable clearly bore the brunt of the weight, of the forward pulling weight. but no problems, and 2 extra strength zip ties seem to be doing the job. So we'll just be going with that. I'm sure I'll be updating you as I check it during some breaks, which also tends to be when I do some of my recordings, as you can probably imagine, although since I'm riding now, you know I also record them when I ride. By the way, I do not use a one-handed method when I record now. I have a cup holder, for lack of a better way of putting it, that straps onto the handlebars. Again, it's reasonably close enough that it's decent audio quality for when I ride, and it's pretty simple operation for me. It's basically swipe, turn off the Bluetooth headphones, hit the recording app, hit record. So it's that swipe, Bluetooth is 2, recording app 3, record 4. So it's a four gesture operation to get things rolling, which is typically very easy. And of course, I only do it when I'm on a straightaway and it's an easy thing to do. Or of course, I'll sometimes start recording and you don't hear the fumbling of putting it into the holder and me starting to ride. It's just a little bit more efficient way. Also, I think it gives you a bit more of a soundscape and more of an experience of what it's like to actually ride. So there you go. All right, a supersized portion to begin day 3. Thank you for riding along with me. From, about maybe 10 miles in, we're just shy of Brunswick right now. I just saw 2 people, and this is a first for me, on pennyfarthings. Yes, honest to God, pennyfarthings. At first, from a distance, I thought they were on tall bikes, which would have been a first for me on the trail. But not only was it a tall bike, 2 fine-looking pennyfarthings. Gotta love the C&amp, man. That was pretty fantastic. Taking a quick break in Brunswick. You can hear freight train off in the background here. A lot of people on the trail going between Harpers Ferry and Brunswick. There was a big group that I had to thread my way through as they were right ready to go. So they were all up by the access gate there, but it all worked out just fine. I decided to take off my outer coat layer, my raincoat layer, just because I just don't need it. It's beautiful and sunny right now, and it'll be just fine. I am rocking the Johnny Cash look. I am all in black right now, but that should be fine. May end up going down to just the t-shirt layer at some point later on today, but that's an open question. It depends on truly how warm it gets. Like I said, mid-60s, but we'll see how it goes. I'm perfectly fine just going like this for a while, and I can always mix and match as necessary. I do have shorts if I wanted to, but also these track pants that I'm wearing, I can actually roll up in a way that effectively they are shorts. I look like an idiot, but if I do get that warm, I can do that on the fly. So quick break here. I've decided that I'm going to take moderately decent sized breaks every 16 miles, which basically is the quarter point for each section. So the first of those points will be at Point of Rocks, which is down about maybe 7 miles from here. So this was just a quick banana break and shed the layer break and talk to you break. But I'm going to do a little bit more of a probably like a granola bar and hydration break in Point of Rocks. And after that, the next one will be somewhere around the old ferry, the White's Ferry spot. That's 35. 32 is technically 16 miles from there. So I have memory serves Turtle Run campground is there, so I may stop there instead. There's not much to stop at White's Ferry now that the ferry has been closed. By the way, a good update on that. It might be worth saying here while I'm taking a quick break. Not good. There was a new owner of White's Ferry who I think might be a tech bro or something like that. Forgive me if that's incorrect, but that's my memory, that he was involved in some technology aspect, as many people in Northern Virginia are. That's the old where AOL formed, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, there's still quite a bit of tech in Northern Virginia. In any event, there was some speculation and some desire that this was gonna work out because dude was all set to pay some money to get the folks on the Virginia side, because he purchased the Maryland side, get the Virginia side folks to play ball. And that was pretty good. Everybody was pretty excited about that. And then the Virginia people, as they have been throughout this entire process, said, no, absolutely not. We want a cut of every single ride that goes through here. In other words, a cut of every car, a cut of presumably every cyclist. There's money generated for cyclists too, but not like a flat fee. And so that's it. Apparently, dude is now going to sell his Maryland share, and we're basically back to square zero on that. And that also means that we're looking at the possibility of eminent domain coming into the state of Virginia, or Commonwealth of Virginia, excuse me. Yeah, it's just a big mess, and it's a shame because it's a really, really cool thing to have that cable ferry across the river. It was the last of its kind. And it also connected you to the Washington Old Dominion Trail, hotels on that side for you in types who want to do this trail. It's real rough. There have been folks, and I may test this at some point, who cross the bridge at Point of Rocks, which is where I'm going to be going to and taking my longer break, and then ride from there. You can ride to essentially where the Metro Silver Line is. You can get to Leesburg, but I have to be honest, that bridge it feels a little dicey. This is coming from somebody who crosses the Columbia River on 101 on the Astoria Meigs Bridge, which a lot of people, including Adventure Cycling Association, have said, yeah, not anymore. So that gives you a sense of how busy it is. So I may check it out at some point and may do a podcast all around that, just to see how easy it is to get from DC, taking the Silver Line out. It would take about an hour from there, and then probably an hour to get to Point of Rocks and join the trail. So yeah, more to come on that. From the low water bridge crossing around, what's this, mile marker 52.5. Oh boy, I have wasted a lot of digital ink on this over the last few years. Boy, they sure don't seem to be in any hurry to do any work on this. I'm gonna keep rolling because I got some runners behind me that I would prefer to stay ahead of. Yeah, just the same area closed. It's now quite overgrown where the original trail was. And yeah, it's a perfectly fine crossing. I had forgotten about it until I was going through it, and I was like, oh, this is new. And I was like, no, it is not. This is old. And then I remember declaring on the pod how I had talked to a contractor who was about ready to put in a bid to fix it. And, well, clearly that never happened. So who the heck knows? It's very easy. I think, barring major summer thunderstorms creating a ton of water coming through there, that low crossing is well above water the vast majority of the time. It's not something I would spend a lot of time worrying about, because the conditions that would make it something to worry about would be causing you other issues on the trail, namely massive thunderstorms. So as you can probably tell from a few of these recordings, I am catching a little bit of a headwind. It's the kind of remnants of the front that went through yesterday, but it's not that bad. I'm cutting through it no problem, even with the parachute that are the two panniers on my bike. By the way, still weird to see blue panniers on this bike. It's almost like, oh, I'm riding someone else's bike, but clearly not. So, but hey, I'll tell you what, they are shiny and new, and their waterproofness is extra waterproofy. So that's great. But still weird. Still a little weird, but hey, time marches on, man. Time marches on. Unless you're the low water crossing at mile marker 52.5, you are perpetual. From big break number 1 at Point of Rocks, Maryland, nearby the bridge that I mentioned, as being the option, quote unquote, if you are intent on getting to the Virginia side, trying to get to Leesburg and those other places since the cable ferry's out. And traffic's not terrible on it right now. It's just real narrow and there's no shoulder to speak of. So you are taking the lane, and I just don't know how people would be about it. I do believe there is a share of the road sign, so it's not like it's completely unexpected, but you all bike like I do and know that you could have all the signs you want. You could have all the sharrows you want. And sometimes that doesn't make a bit of difference. So it's not going to be something I'm going to try today. I think if I had maybe a later rig at some point, maybe later this summer, I may test out grab the Metro, take the Silver Line all the way to the end, and then come out here and camp and maybe do a reverse of that just to test it, see what it's like. But really the only option out this direction, at least. So let's see. Like I said, you're going to take a bit of a break here. I've got my tent and my fly and everything, well, now blowing in the wind. I'm trying to get them to dry out, but I probably should stake them down. By the way, I think Americans say stake and Europeans say peg. I don't know why. It's like gasoline, petrol. I don't know, deep thoughts. Taking a brief break here at the Monocacy Aqueduct, which is just so impressive, and they did such a nice job rebuilding this. It's just gorgeous, and the Monocacy River, of course, is a major trib here of the Potomac, and I can see as it slowly meanders into the Potomac River. You can probably maybe hear the train bridge in the background. It's far enough away that it's not quite as much. This would be a really interesting place to potentially stealth camp, but I think that it's probably getting some folks that would be looking at it, Park Service folks. And of course, it would be out of bounds to do so. And of course, there are also a couple of good, if not great, spots that are hiker-biker spots. You've got Indian Flats, which I just passed, and Marble Quarry on the other side of this. Maybe a little less than 4.5 miles down trail. So lots of different options for you, as always with camping. But a really picturesque spot. You would not be able to beat the picturesque nature. So I suppose if you were able to do it late at night and get out first thing in the morning, it would be possible to be able to be right on the river, which is just beautiful. All right, not recommended, not endorsing it, just saying it's possible. Okay, I've got another, let's see, I'm probably going to take another very brief break in about 4 miles or so, and then my longer break will be in about 8, give or take, mile marker 32. So I'm sorry, 8 from there. So 32 is where I'm going to be angling for my sandwich, which I purchased yesterday from Shepherdstown, from the Great Shepherdstown Bakery. Looking forward to that. I'm actually on the hungry side, so I have had a bar earlier that should get me through, and then I'll be able to enjoy that sandwich later. Mile marker 40. The canal at this point is all filled in, covered in a thick carpet of green algae, just beautiful shade of green. Turtles are all out, but they are very wise on me. Every time I stop and try to take a picture, for ones that are close enough to get a decent shot of, they hop in the water. So I'll give that a break. I got a few the other day, so that'll have to do. Passed by recently the training area. I don't know if it still is, but it was the Olympic kayaking training area. Don't know why it's there, but it's there. And it's never active when I'm going by. Don't know why, but maybe because it's not active. Who knows? Anyways, things are going pretty well. I'm starting to feel a little on the tired side. And of course, I've got 40 plus miles to go. So I think a break at mile marker 32 will be very welcome, and a little bit of food too. I think I will take a brief hydration break at the next campsite, which I think should be coming up reasonably soon. And the weather is just gorgeous. I'm also happy to say that I'm out of the area where there's more people. It's been very busy on the trail. Just nice to have fewer people. I say that as a cyclist comes. Jinx. From Marble Quarry hiker-biker campsite. Decided to take a little bit of more than a hydration break. I'm not in any race to get home, so I'll still take a longer break in about 6 miles. But Marble Quarry, as I recall, is a really nice campsite. So I wanted to shuffle out here and see what it looks like. It's got such great river access. It is elevated though, so this is not a flood-prone campsite. And it's also enormous and flat. This is just, if you're just wanting to do a day trip or an overnight trip out from DC, we're about 38 miles and change from Georgetown here. That's a perfectly solid ride. Could you do more? Sure, but what a tremendously great campsite opportunity it is here. And I don't do that enough, I think, for kind of the S240s. What I'll tend to do is I'll tend to do the shorter ones where I'll only go like 16 or 21 miles out, but really coming out to about here is a great way to escape and have nice river access, you know, and the like. So maybe some summer night I may take advantage of that. Maybe, you know, that's one of those things like, you know, I've got a fair number of vacation days, and I could come out here on some good summer night when the sun allows me some extra time to get out here, because it'll take me about 4 hours to get out here of real diligent riding with a couple of breaks. And then, you know, so yeah, I mean, you leave around 5 o'clock, you're here by 9-ish. That works out pretty good. And then maybe take a half day off the next day and then come on back and then work the back half of the day. That's a way to do it. Just take the day off. Lots of different options. Yeah, this is all good. It's been nice to be back on the trail again. And even though I didn't do a complete through ride, it's close enough that I'm getting the vibes off of it. All right, I will enjoy a little more hydration here on this brief break so that I can enjoy a longer break in about a half hour or so. All right, more trail to come. From Edwards Ferry, mile marker 30.8. It is overcast and chilly today as the day has gone on, which is a stark contrast to what we had with the sun earlier, but it's all good. I'm certainly generating enough warmth to be fine. This is going to be an extended break. I went a touch further than the 32-mile point, just because this is a better place to kind of like stretch out a little bit. I'm actually sitting on what probably used to be a window sill or something. Oh, actually, it probably was a doorway into a house, and the only thing that remains is the brick and stone foundation. It's long gone. Probably was a lock house or something like that. This is a boat ramp now, Edwards Ferry. This is also a point where, if you've ever heard me tell the story of when I got flooded out when I camped, it was at a camp spot not too far away from here, about maybe a half a mile or less. And yeah, literally the river flooded around me, and I had to ride through water to get back to this point, and then I was able to get to the roads and ride home on the road route that you can take from here, which is far less interesting, but certainly doable, along River Road and then back to DC that way. But yeah, quite the adventure. The video exists. I think I put it on the Pedal Shift site, but it was on my personal one for a while. One of these days I'll have to dig it up and rebroadcast it to you all, because it is funny. Although the ending is cheesy the way I did it. I may have to recut it. All right, so extended break. I'm going to take at least a solid 20 minutes, half hour here. The sandwich that I got in Shepherdstown, delicious, as would be expected. And I'm going to hydrate as well. And I'm down to a thing of Pop-Tarts and a couple of granola bars, which is way more calories than I need, but the body's burning them in weird ways today, so I may need to hammer those out as I keep going. I'm feeling pretty good, but a little bit on the tired side, so welcome rest. Rolling again. Probably should have stayed longer, but I was really starting to chill down quite a bit, and I thought that probably was a bad idea. So I threw on my puffy vest, which kept me warm. Well, the turtles are still out. They still consider it a little warm, or warm enough, I guess. But I am getting cold, so I do have multiple layers. I can stop and change, but I figured once I got moving, it would feel better. It is now, as threatened, there was a chance of a small shower, so I may pull over and put on rain gear instead, because this is no fun. All right, more to come. All right, that was just a little bit of spinning, and now, of course, the sun has come out, so I guess everything's all okay. It just had to be... Yeah, that was funny, because I was down for a second there. I was like, man, got to get my rain gear on. Didn't want to. Update on the trail conditions. So here we are in the section that I would say is, to me, historically some of the poorest conditions. It's the new surface. So I don't know how far down they got, but, you know, this could at times be bad, and right now it's in freaking great shape. There's a ton of maple tree helicopters, you know, the seeds, how they fall. There's a lot of those on the ground because, of course, one of the predominant species here is maple, sugar maples mostly, and or white maples, I should say, white maples, I think, and of course oak. So we're getting a combination of oak pollen clumps and helicopters from, that's what we call them, at least where I grew up. I don't know if there's some people call them something else, but from the maples. Yeah, so there's a lot of detritus on the trail, but it's actually really just rolls great. And this is, like I said, part of the trail that's given me the most troubles in the past. All right, we are under 30 miles to DC, which feels good to say. We're past the halfway point, so more riding to come. Just passed by a Horse Pen Branch hiker-biker campsite. That is the first of the regular hiker-bikers, or for me, the last of them. The only one that's left is at mile marker 16, which is where I'm going to be making a longer rest in a bit, about 10 miles. But yeah, we are getting much closer to DC. Tons of people on bikes today. Holy moly. I mean, I'm going no more than like 60 to 90 seconds between seeing people oncoming. Pretty crazy. The pandemic is definitely over in terms of the C&O, and it's crowding on a Sunday. Holy smokes. I'm about mile marker 22, taking a short break, a hydration break here. There happens to be a bench here, so maybe I'll take a little bit more time than that. Looking across the river at, I don't know, it's a big house. I don't know what it is, if it's a winery or something it may be. It's got that kind of vibe. You might be able to hear a plane overhead. That's Dulles Airport's very close by from here. So we're near the flight paths, which means I am very close to home. You know who else is close to home? The 8 billion people on this trail. Holy smokes. As I mentioned before, there are a lot. Now, normally, this area is, it's busy around the parking lots. And the parking lot that I just went by was massively full. So it explains all the people who are on the trail. But I'm also just sort of just gearing myself up mentally for Great Falls, which is probably going to be a giant shit show just between you and me. It usually is on weekends. But based on what I'm seeing here, I'm thinking Great Falls is going to be a constant stream of ring on your left. And I'm just getting mentally prepared for that. I'll take a longer break right before Great Falls, so that'll probably be good and put some sugar in my body so I'm not in any kind of a hangry space for that. Feeling good. Sun is intermittently coming out. When it does, it's warm. When it doesn't, it's chilly, which is fine. Feeling pretty good. I think lunch was really well timed. I needed that little bit of a boost. It's made the last, let's see here. If I'm at 22, that was at, 48? Was it that long ago? No, it was at 32, I think it was. So I've gone about 10 miles. It's been very quick. It's felt quick. I told Kimberly that I would probably be home somewhere between 5 and 6, and I think it's probably going to be closer to 6 o'clock at this rate. If I just hammered away at the mileage that was left, it would probably be closer to 5. I don't know. It depends. Depends on how much time I take in for my last long break. I've liked how this has gone for taking these quarter distance stops of length and then taking short versions at the halfway points of those. That has seemingly served me pretty well so far. I think as I've discovered through the years, I tend to be just a hammer, and, don't take enough breaks and don't stop and, see the sights and stuff. And, just sitting here right now at this beautiful bench with this beautiful view of the Potomac, it's like, yeah, it's worth taking a little bit of a break. I mean, even just 10 minutes can be a huge bit of restoration for you. And I just don't do it enough. I think I still have it in my mind, I got to get to camp, got to get to the end. And that tends to not serve me very well. I wonder if I was damaged from my first tour, the tour I've talked about with the organized group, the Climate Ride folks, where I didn't want to be last and I was last frequently because I had the wrong bike, as it turns out. Well, anyways, we'll work through that more in therapy. I don't know, whatever. All right, more to come. Aha, so perhaps you can hear it, perhaps you can't, but here on the other side of block 23, so we're within 21 miles and change, we are back to the quote-unquote historic towpath surface. So, a couple of things I want to say. What a difference. Still very rideable, the trail's in great shape, but what a difference that new surface is. It extends from mile marker 22 all the way through Shepherdstown. And perhaps beyond. I don't know how much further it goes beyond that because I didn't ride that this go around. But that is 50 plus miles of a really excellent surface. So, and in a part that used to be my least favorite part of trail in terms of the conditions. Really fantastic. So excited that that's the case. And I think another good reason to include the C&O in your plans if you have eschewed it because of trail surface reasons. The historic surface is fine in most parts. Just that stretch in the 20s, not great. Was not great, especially during the summer, because it would get too much shade, would be rutted, would always be muddy when the rest of the trail was dry. Yeah, that is a much better setup. Fantastic. All right, next stop, mile marker 16-ish for an extended break. From Swains Lock, the final campground between here and DC that is not a group campground. Of course, Marsden Track is in about 6 miles, but that's mostly for scouts and other organized groups. I'm chilly, I'll be honest. It also started to drizzle a little bit, so I threw on all of the rain gear just to allow myself a little bit of a break and not have to go scrambling for shelter like almost everybody else. Yeah, I think this has been a great ride. I'm bummed that it's coming to an end, but at the same time, I think I'm going to welcome the shower at the end of the day and all the other kind of good stuff that comes with that. I do have one more challenging section here, and it's got nothing to do with the trail. It's got nothing to do with my energy levels, anything like that. It is the bait of my existence on a weekend, Great Falls. However, as much as I was going, oh, bummer, it's raining, then I was like, oh, it's raining. So maybe that'll chase at least some people away and just make it a little bit easier to get through. The challenge, of course, is that this is a popular place. Lots of people love coming to it. It's beautiful. It's cool. The problem is that when you're on a bike and it's a crowded trail, it's really hard to maneuver around and folks aren't listening and, they're paying attention to their friends and their family and the sights and the sounds and not the hangry biker is trying to get by. So I'll try to go with as good of an attitude as I can. And I think that will be I will be rewarded for that. We'll just put it that way. All right, let's see. Just checking the time here because 3:27. Yeah, not bad. I will have, if I wait another 3 minutes, then I will have taken about a 20-minute break, which I think is reasonable. I probably could or maybe even should go longer, but I just ate the last of the food that I have and 2 just granola bars that I just wolfed down. And then I've been flagging a little bit energy-wise, and I thought, okay, well, there's sugar, and then there's the magic of caffeine. So I took one of my instant coffees and shook that up with some water and kind of gulped that down. It's not going to be a ton of caffeine, but maybe just a little bit to just give that little bit of an extra spark for the last 16 miles. Interesting. Something just fell from this tree that looks like it is from another world. It appears to be fungal in some way, shape, or form. Well, we all saw that TV show, didn't we? Okay. Oh, off we go. And again, this is going to be part of the more, what I call the DC part of the trail. The trail conditions can be good. They can be mediocre. I don't believe that this rainstorm created any issues. I am stunned. The way they sold this, it was like wind and damaging gusts and all this other stuff. Not a single downed tree. No discernible problems with the trail conditions at all because of the rain. So yeah, I'm glad I made the choice that I did yesterday, but what a nothing burger it turned out to be in terms of like the after effects at least. So that's good. That makes today's riding that much better. All right, off we go. From Great Falls, you might be able to hear the rapids. It's dead. Like there's nobody here. It's so weird. Like this trail has been so busy, abnormally busy in parts that normally aren't that busy. And here in Great Falls, where I'm standing at the spot where it's normally my biggest nightmare, and it's totally dead. I'm literally the only person here. Weird. What a weird day. Maybe the rain really did chase people away, but anyways, more riding. Here we go. Let's get to DC. From inside mile marker 10, and we are approaching the Beltway, I-495, which means we are not technically in DC yet, but it is the metaphysical heart of my fair district, the inside the Beltway portion. It is great to be back here. These miles, while I still have 10 miles to go, these miles tend to mentally go pretty quickly for me because it's around mile marker 4 or 5 or so where things just get very familiar. I mean, it's pretty familiar here. I've stealth camped back here, quite frankly, so it's nice to be home after a bit of a kind of a interesting thing, weather conditions that the trail gave me. I mean, when I arrived, it was like summer heat, and now it's, early spring kind of temperatures. It's crazy. Well, in any event, I will not bore you with the sounds of the traffic that when I go under the bridge, so we'll leave it at here, but more to come. Mile marker 7.7. Decided to take my mid-quarter break, my 1/8 break, I guess, just for a little bit of a hydration and there was a bench here. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even realize it was right around that 8 mile mark. So yeah, I'm intrigued with repeating this experiment of I guess we'll say that I take breaks in equal eighths and larger breaks on the quarters, as I have mentioned previously in today's edition. So yeah, intriguing to see if it continues to work. It's stunning how quiet the trail has gotten now. That was the first person that's passed me or that I've come near in about a mile. It's really interesting how the trail use deviates today compared to on other days. Now, part of that may be timing, I don't know. But in any event, it was really nice that it wasn't too busy in the historically busiest sections. It was interesting that in the 20s, between mile marker 30 and mile marker 20, how busy it was. I've never seen it that busy. That may be, actually, as I sit here and hypothesize, the new surface, that has brought more people from that part of Maryland to the trail, that improving the surface means more people will use it, which argues to do the same in all parts of this trail. I certainly am feeling the difference here on the DC side of things, where it's pebbled, it's rocky, it's just not as smooth, and it's the historic surface. And there were arguments before about keeping that way because of the historical value, to mimic what the towpath used to be. But obviously that has been rejected in other parts. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know how they would do it here in this section. They'd have to close sections of it, I would think, for periods of time. I don't know how easy it would be to do that because it is so heavily used. It's a commuting route by this point. So, all right, another couple minutes and then will be the final stretch. And just like that, I am home. I am very, very tired. I'm going to enjoy myself a nice non-alcoholic Sam Adams. Yes, they make that. A cheese stick, it looks like. And looking forward to going out to dinner tonight when Kimberly returns home because she is stuck in traffic. So yes, I bicycled back and still beat her. Is that a good epilogue? I don't know, but it is what it is. What a fun ride. So glad to get the C&O in the books, even though there was a minor fast forward in there. And even though maybe I didn't need to do that in retrospect, I still think that was the right call. By the way, caffeine, breakfast of champions, man. That just making that one small choice to have a little bit of caffeine at the end there really made the last 16 miles just a lot easier. As I was like feeling, gosh, I'm really struggling. I feel like I'm in bike shape earlier than normal. What's going on? Yeah, a little bit of caffeine and boom, we're all set. All right, more to come. And of course, we've got statistics for this episode. And of course, takeaways next week. Statistics. Miles biked 64. Gnats consumed approximately 8,000. Pennyfarthing encounters 2.
2 low water crossings crossed, 1 flats 0. And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedal Shift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedal Shift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one shot and annual options if you're not into the small monthly thing. Check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lean, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittus, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadis, Chris Barron, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joachim Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Hankel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Jody Zaranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Biggle, Greg Middlemiss, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latoile Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Ronald Paroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBlanc, Ari Messenger, David Kropke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lico, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCullough, John Hickman, Carl Presso, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Michael Lazuski, Hank O'Donnell, David Zanoni, David Weil, Matthew Sponsell, Chad Reno, Spartan Dale, Carolyn Ferguson, Peggy Littlefield, Lauren Allensmith, Eric Burns, Thomas Pearl, Darren McKibben, Richard Stewart, Dave Fletcher, Jack Smith, Luke Parkinson, Ryan Patterson, Sarus Faravar, John Gardner, Sam Scruggs, Dwight Pintinger, Connie Bowder, Rob Merrifield, and thanks to all past and anonymous folks for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedal Shift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedal Shift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.